if times change, is some of the books that they're using out of date or whatever. But at the same time, I kind of want somebody who has real life experience.
And you absolutely have to be adaptable as a business leader. You have to adapt to markets, you have to adapt to your team, you have to adapt your communication style, all these different things. So, how do I know if I'm doing a good job? That should be a conversation, but also know that the plan will change. So, you can't be afraid of having a tough conversation. And let me tell you a secret, most of those tough conversations aren't as bad as you think they're going to be.
Hey, welcome to the Relevant Development Podcast. I am your host, Juan Alvarado. My guest today is Emily. Emily, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Juan. How are you?
Doing well. Let everybody know where you are joining us from.
So I'm just north of Seattle, Washington. So we live in a place called Anacortes, and it's like a little fishing oil refinery village, and it's about 90 minutes away from downtown Seattle.
Wow. Have you always been there?
No, so I grew up in North Seattle. So
Okay.
my parents and family are still down here, but this is like it's far enough away, but close enough, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Same with my wife and I relocating here to Central California. Is like it's far enough from our parents who
Yeah,
live, down south in Southern California, but it's close enough to travel if we want to go and do anything down there.
exactly.
And then my parents moved a block and a half away from me, and
Oh,
so
okay.
it's good though. It's good. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. But awesome. So let the listeners know. Tell us a little bit about you and some of your accolades and the things that you hang your hat on.
Yeah, so the highlight reel is I've been leading client-facing teams for 15 years in the corporate world. So I started at large corporations, Microsoft and Amazon. I was a tester for the original Kindle device, which has been
Yeah.
a lot of fun to watch where that has gone and how that's developed. And then I worked a series of small to medium tech businesses. So some were startups, some were a little bit more on the medium side, but standing up international client management teams or scaling operations by 500% in a rapid period of time. So all of those types of fun projects culminated in a role as chief of staff, which is a strategic advisor to the CEO and the executive team. And then I really wanted to start my own business. And so I put all of the chips in the table for my executive coaching business. And I've been doing that for about 18 months now. So doing that full time and loving it, working with business leaders from all over the world. And I wrote 2 books and am talking to chiefs of staff from all sorts of industries. So it's been a lot of fun.
What are those two books called?
Hacking Executive Leadership and an Insider's Perspective on the Chief of Staff.
Which one is the most recent one?
Chief of Staff.
Chief of staff. Okay, because on the profile that I was looking at, what intrigued me was the first one about hacking. Like you get that word like hacking into like, okay, I want the cheat sheet, right? The cliff notes, like
Yeah.
how do I do this? So that kind of got my attention. How do you go from the whole testing a Kindle and that type of tech stuff? Because you had the tech background, so I'm assuming that some of that stuff interests you. Coaching, at an executive level. I mean, because that's a very broad spectrum, right? It's one side and the other one's the other side. So what kind of interest do you have, or what kind of made you go from one to the next as far as tech to coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I think, tech is for people. There's the process and the people build it and creators, but it's also for end users. So there's a people element in everything we do. And just at a larger sense, I've always been interested in people. When I was young, I was like, why are they like that? Like sometimes I was like, why are they like that? But sometimes it's like what makes them a good leader? Like people follow them, people are drawn to them. Like why does that happen with some people and not others? And so it was just a natural curiosity that I had throughout all my corporate roles. So whatever company I was at, whatever team I was leading, I was like, this mix of people on my team is really interesting. And oh, this leadership mix is really fascinating. And so when I would have one-on-one interactions with people where I knew that I helped them get to their next level, like I knew I helped Jennifer get her promotion, or I helped Christian say, like, I can't get up in front of people and give a presentation. Yet he went to our risk summit in London and presented in front of 200 people. Like to me, that means something. And I look back on those types of things and said, that's what I can hang my hat on. And those were the favorite parts of my day. So I said, all right, Emily, if you can wake up and do nothing but those types of things all throughout your day, that would be the golden path. And I
Yeah.
said, life is short, so I'm going to try. And even if I quote unquote fail, I can always go back to corporate, but I'm going to try.
What do you think is the difference between two different types of leaders? One, the leadership that you have in that I love to see people grow and do the things that they say that they can't and help them and coach them type of leadership compared to that leader that says, I don't either I don't have the time or I feel that there's a lot of leaders that feel threatened by if I this guy's already good or this girl's already good. If I pour into them, what if?
I think the second one is the common one that I've seen. So they're scared at some level, and they could be insecure. And it's, "Oh, I can't give them credit for what they're doing on my team because 'cause that'll make me look bad." When actually it's the reverse, right? So if you're a team leader, your success is derived from your team. It's not what you can personally do anymore. That's maybe when you are an IC or individual contributor. But once you get to that first layer of people management is, "Oh, what can I get this team to do as a group?" And if my team performs well, that reflects positively on me. And an expansion of that is, oh, if I ever want to get promoted, then I need my backfill. I need my succession planning already in place. Well, Emily, we'd love to promote you, but who's going to take care of that team? Oh, like Jason is, because I already have him all prepped and ready to go. He's a rock star. Oh, okay. In that case, da 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 da.
Right.
So I think there's philosophies around I don't have time, and that's where you don't see the value in investing in your people. So if you saw a high ROI on that activity of spending time and investing, you would do it. So it might be looking at that equation and saying, "Ooh, am I missing out on something here?" And then there's the insecurity ego check piece where it's like, "Oh, okay, I got to check my ego at the door, get my team ramped up, and it actually puts me in a better position to progress as well."
Yeah, and we can go down that rabbit hole of like, how does that leader that has that ego, how do they come to that conclusion, right? Because not every hard-headed person is gonna say one day wake up and be like, oh, let me
Yeah.
just switch this, right? I would rather go down the rabbit hole of what you just said, of hey, Jason's gonna take care because I've already been working with him. And he's a rock star. In your book, you talk about the difference between a talent and a skill. As a leader, am I looking for the person with the talent, or am I looking for the person with the skill? Like, what am I looking for? I'll leave it there because I have a follow up question.
Sure. So talent is the raw material. So if you think about literally how we use that word, we talk about actors, like get the talent in here. Where's the talent? We talk
Oh,
about a talent scout, like, oh, they're going to pick the best baseball player. Talent is raw material. It means you have potential. It means this person has potential to become great. Skill is the honing your craft and saying, I'm going to put the focus in, the discipline, and the reps in to take my talent and turn it into skill. Steph Curry didn't like come out of the womb being a good basketball player. He
right.
had the raw talent. He had like the coordination, the quickness, and the fast reflexes, all that stuff. But he had to hone his game and become a basketball player. And he's elevated that so high, it becomes an art form. So when you watch him play, it's not like, oh, he's dribbling, he's stopping, 3-point stance, he's shooting. It's like an art form. And so that's like an extreme example of when you take raw talent and you really make that a skill. So back to your question, as a leader, I would say you certainly want to look for talent because that's helpful. But more so, do you have someone who is willing and able to take their talent, whatever they have, and turn it into skill? So, are they coachable? Do they want to learn? Do they want to grow? Are they hungry? Are they like, I will do whatever it takes to get me to the next level or to get this team to the next level? That's the person that I want. So, talent, yes, all things being equal, of course you want the person with greater talent and raw skills, but more so it's, are they hungry? Are they coachable?
Got it. Which is I love the analogy of the of that of one is raw talent or the and the skill. Like I want to turn this into this. It was a good visual for me to understand that. So the next part that I want to get to is I don't know how much you have in the training up the leader, pouring into that leader, the executive leader, when it comes to hiring, because understand that hiring is more of an HR thing compared to that leader. But like, I just read the other day that CEOs, heads of organizations, are telling the HR department, get rid of the requirement for a degree.
Yeah.
I think I read that Microsoft, Apple, and there's a couple other companies that are saying, forget it. One, the pool is very, very short or small. We can't pull these people, but you don't need that degree to do the work that we need you to do, and it just gets in the way. We can teach the skill. Just
Yes.
get me talent, I can teach the skill. Why do you think that, one, good move or bad move, and why do you think a lot of organizations are going that way? Because I also believe that there's other places where it's like, I don't want you to have that standard. I want my doctors and my nurses,
Yeah.
right, to have
You're doing
to
brain
go
surgery. I
through
want you to
that,
have a
right?
medical degree. Yeah.
Right. But, and I think that's common sense for even the people who seem like they don't have common sense. However, but like, why do you think industries are doing this? And is it good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so my personal take is if you can do the job, I don't care if you passed finger painting. If you can do the job and if you're teachable and coachable. Now, are there certain things that come with a college education? Certainly. One of the biggest ones for me is not necessarily the degree or the field you studied, but it was, oh, you had a long term goal and you had to go through a process and go through teachers and classes that you didn't like, but you had to go through it and you stuck with it. Who did that? Now, if you've learned different things from an MBA or things that would apply to business, like great, that could be additive too. The flip side of that is if you have two candidates, so candidate A is like pedigreed from Harvard and Oxford and knows all the textbook concepts you could possibly want, Gantt charts and SWOT analysis and market segmentation. And you have candidate B who graduated high school and stopped. But they took those years to get practical experience in your field. Well, depending on the role, depending on the phase of your company, depending on the setup, one could be more suited to the role that you have than the other. And I'm
Right.
not saying the person with education is always bad or the person with practical experience is always better, but it just depends. And so I think opening it up to people without a college degree just opens up your candidate pool. And I think that overall is a positive thing.
Yeah, because I know this is probably, I don't want to dumb it down or not validate these kinds of people, but like, even with like marketing and media, like, you have people going to school to be a marketing manager, a media manager, right? And they're learning all this stuff. But then there's 18, 19-year-old kids who've been doing this since they were 12 years old, right?
Yeah.
And now they're like, look at how many followers I have, and I've helped this company, this company, this company. And I just ran into somebody not too long ago. She's 20 and she's helping this organization with their marketing via social media, and like 10x their income with a 0 degree. And it's like, and she's been doing it since she was 12. So it's like, dude, you had 8 years. And then you have somebody else coming in is like, I read all the books and I learned from all these people. It was like,
Yeah.
but so has she, right? It's
Yeah.
like she's learned from other people who are in the game who are doing it, not just some professor or whatever who might think that they know what they're. I don't know, because like times change, right? And it's like, if times change, is some of the books that they're using out of date or whatever. But at the same time, I kind of want somebody who has real life experience. Even some management stuff where, hey, you, like you were talking about, you have these, you're committed for these 4 years or 6 years, and you took all these leadership courses. But I also have this person who's been a manager for an organization who at 15 and a half, 16 and a half did this thing. When they became 18, they became a manager, but now they're 25 and they've been in that management role or two different management roles for 5, 6+ years and have done X, Y, and Z. It's like,
Yeah.
one person has really good personable skills, but yet the other one has that degree. Like, where do we go when it comes to, because I've done this and I've made this mistake, and I've talked about this before on the podcast. As a leader, when we're looking for talent or we're looking for skill or we're looking for that person, right? Sometimes it doesn't always translate. So how do we find, so I kind of want two different perspectives. As a leader, how do we find the right people? And then as the people or the person, how do I do what's right to move up? So how do I get this person to move up? And then how
Yeah.
do I get this person to move up? The mistake that I made is somebody being really good at their job, but then it doesn't translate into the work. Like it's different. So leadership and management is more people skills, and they're really good at what they do. Like they can run circles around everybody in their industry. But as soon as they moved up, or me as a leader was like, "Oh, bro, you're good. Come up." And then you're like, "What the hell did I do?"
What the hell did I get myself into? It's an
Right.
entirely different skill set. It's an entirely different skill set. So, one of the biggest jumps you make in business or in your career is when you go from that first individual contributor role or IC to your first people management role. You're managing a team now. That's one of the biggest jumps you can take because, like you just said, people are like, oh, I'm a top performer in my IC role. I must be good at leading a team of these ICs. And you can't fall back on what you can personally accomplish or what you can personally produce. You have to flex brand new muscles. You have to say, oh, how do I stand up the people and process and get the tools in place so this group of 15, 20, 25 people can do things as well as I did? And I see a lot of first time managers who slide back into, oh, this is new. I don't know how to do this. I feel uncomfortable. I'm not the top dog anymore. I'm going to revert back to and default back to what I know how to do. And they slink back into their IC role when really they've been hired to be a manager. So I
What do they
think
do? What should they do instead of
so
falling back?
yeah, so for your 2 ends of the equation there, as leaders, you need to recognize that's a big jump, and that's a whole entirely different skill set you need to train someone on. So it's not just like,
Ooh,
"Hey, like, Juan, you're, like, top performer in sales, like, you be the head of the sales team. How about that?" You're like, "Okay. Oh, snap. Now I'm in this new role." Your manager should say, "Hey, I want to talk to you about taking on this new role. I think you'd be great at it. Here's the training plan we have. Here's the communication piece. Here's the people management piece. Here's some of the paperwork and admin that you're going to have to do. Here's how we bring people along and the leaders you want to develop on your team in the next 18 to 24 months. Like that is a way to prep your leader coming into that role. If you're on the other side of it and you're like, all right, I'm a top performer. I just got promoted. What the heck happens? Know that you're going to be uncomfortable. Like you're going to be like, oh no, I'm not the best anymore. And that's going to be true for a period of time. You're going to be going from the top performer to I'm brand new at this and I suck at
love it.
everything. And in
Yep.
that moment, you have to make a decision. I can revert back or I can stay here and get good at this new thing of being a manager and trust myself that I became good at that thing I didn't know about before. I can do it again. I can take this thing that I'm brand new at, I feel uncomfortable, and in 6, 9, 12 months, I'm gonna be looking back at this and laughing at how hard it was and laughing at how stressful it was because I'm gonna be able to do this in my sleep.
Yeah. I want to stay here a little bit because you said something that, and the listener probably grazed over hearing, but I got the lesson from it. And I think if you can go into a little bit more detail or steps, I think it'd be totally helpful. Is you said as a leader, you said it's a different skill set, right, for that staff to move up, and I have to train them in that. And I think that's a big key is people will move them up and like, all right, swim, right? Instead of the leader saying they don't have any skills in this, I need to go from whatever their title is, CEO, CFO, whatever. I need to now be trainer. I need to train them in this. And you said something like, this is what we're going to do for the next 6, 12, 18 months. This is the progression. Like there's a plan, but you rifled it off really quick. And I don't know that listeners heard the lesson that I got from it, because I pick up on these cues. What is a good way for a leader, an executive leader, to say, can we stop overloading our staff with promotions, even though they're great? Because the first promotion that people get, or the promotion that people get, they see is money, benefits, title change. Yes, win me. And then they get into the seat and they're like, crap, what the heck did I get myself into? And then they're stressed and blah blah, because there's not a, like you talk about, like a succession plan where there's this road to go. So what thought process should leaders, no matter what role that they have, say we need to develop or have something in place? And then what would that look like? What would be your advice to those people, and how do we do it?
Yeah, so I mean, it certainly depends on the role and the team and everything like that. But something you can look at is zoom out and at first take the personalities out of it and say, what does the business need? So let's
Ooh, say that
say,
again. Say that again. That's a good piece.
yeah, so you need to zoom out and look at the big picture and ask yourself, what does the business need in this moment?
Mm,
Because let's say your sales team, you're like knocking it out of the park and your products are selling like crazy. You want to expand your sales team. Okay. Well, that first of all, it's a good problem to have. Where are we trying to go? We're trying to grow revenue by how much in 18 months? Okay, by 200%, whatever. Okay. So if that's our goal and that's where we are today, what do I need in terms of staffing for a sales team to support that? That's your first question. Like, don't like, okay, like Emily's over here and like John's over there and Lauren is here. Maybe I can move them around. No, 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 no. Zoom out. What do I need to make this business successful? Now, if you come up with, I need 2 sales managers because we're going to scale this team, it might be, all right, what types of skills and talents, skills, and traits do the sales managers need to have? Do I want them to be industry specific? They got to hit the ground running. I can't spend the time to get someone familiar with the lingo and ins and outs of our industry. Or no, you know what? We have good people here, but I need someone who's been at a more mature company who knows what a fully fledged sales operation looks like. Because my people right now are so good at what they do, but this is their first job. They don't know what it's supposed to look like. I need someone who knows what it's supposed to look like. So, okay, maybe in that case, I do an external hire who's been at some different companies who've, seen this rodeo before, and I put them in a sales manager role. And maybe I internally promote one of my top performers into that sales manager role. And that would be a good combination. And hopefully they can collaborate and teach each other things. If you go that route, when you talk to the internal candidate, first of all, I would ask them if you can, unless it's we're going to need you to do this and it's not really a conversation, take one for the team. But I would ask them, hey, you're a top performer in your team. You do this well, you do this well. I see these things about you. We are expanding the sales team. We have this opening. Here's what the spec looks like for this role. Is that something you're interested in? And they might go, yes, like that's amazing. Like I get promoted and how much more money do I get? It's like,
yeah.
we're at this, but here's the responsibilities you have, and understand you might be coming in my office in 3 months' time saying, what the heck did you do to me? I want to be sure to cover off on some of the hard things that you're going to have to do and some of the different things that you have to move into. Oh, okay. Well, okay, hold on. Let's have that conversation. And that's a good conversation to have. But if you've teed that up well and you slide them into that role, and maybe you have someone for them to partner with to learn from, that could be a really good setup and scenario for someone.
Yeah. Do you find that there in the plan there should be like something that we do 3 months is like there's a 3-month plan, a 6-month plan, a
Yeah.
year plan,
Yeah.
and then check in.
Yes, so you should certainly have a plan, and expectations should be set about what does good look like. So,
Mm,
hey, I'm in this sales manager role. How do I know if I'm doing a good job? That should be a conversation, but also know that the plan will change. Like if you have a plan, that's good, but no, it'll change 12 times in the next,
mm.
2 years. And so having that conversation too. Hey, here's where we think it's going to go. This is a rapidly growing company. I'm going to stay in close communication with you about where we're at with things. This is where I see things going now and where your career path would go. But let's just stay in close contact because we know we move fast and we think this product's going to do this or this market and customer is going to do that. So we're simpatico on that type of thing too.
Yeah, because I hear a lot from different organizations, and I've been a part of organizations like this where a spot will open up, somebody leveled up or moved to a different
Yeah.
organization, and then they're like, what are we going to do? And the first thought is, well, let's save money, or let's put 2 people in this position, right? This person was getting paid $200,000. These people are getting paid whatever, 50, $60,000. Let's make this a $75,000 position, and we'll give them an assistant, right? And then 2 people are going to do what these people did, and it's like, or we're just going to collapse this position and put this work amongst all these other people.
Yeah.
And like it's just a different thought process where people are more money sensitive than they are people sensitive.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to see you saying, hey, this is how you should do or hire or fill positions, because it just sucks because you end up being one of those staff that, oh cool, I'm going to do more and I'm going to get paid the same.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. What you've taught so far and talked about, because I don't know what it is. So this is coming from a spot of ignorance in a sense. Swizzle. What is swizzle, and have we talked about it already, or how does that fit into your hacking, if you will?
So Swizzle is it's a framework and tool so you can be creatively resourceful, and I'll explain that. So first of all, let me tell you the origin of that word. So it's a made up word. If you're sitting there going, I haven't heard about Swizzle and leadership, it's because I made it up. And the context was I was running around with my team. We had a PowerPoint presentation we had to do that afternoon, and we were behind schedule, and we were running around. And I was like, guys, we have the content for the presentation in the 3 previous decks we've done, like last month and last week. Swizzle the slides together and let's put together the deck for this afternoon. And by context, they knew what I meant. They said, take the best slides from each of the 3 previous PowerPoint decks and reorder them and reformat them for our afternoon meeting. And it was taking the best of different things and applying them to what you have going on now. The best example I have of this is when I was in the car listening to a podcast and they were interviewing Floyd Mayweather. So you probably know who Floyd Mayweather is.
Yeah.
He's a champion boxer. He's one of the best. I don't know anything about boxing. I don't follow boxing. I don't box myself. I know nothing about that. But they were interviewing him and they said, like, what makes you the best? Like, is it your training or your diet or how quick your hands are or all these things? And he finally said, no, 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 no. None of that's why I'm the champion. What makes me the best is my adaptability. And I can adapt to any opponent, any round, and any punch better than anyone else. And that's what makes me the champion. And I was like driving, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not a boxer, but I could absolutely take that concept,
Right.
lift and shift it into the business world and leadership. And you absolutely have to be adaptable as a business leader. You have to adapt to markets, you have to adapt to your team, you have to adapt your communication style, all these different things. So I swizzled the concept of adaptability from the sports world and the sports
Right.
context into my world, which is business and leadership.
I love that. And just the swizzle, that whole swizzle thing of getting the best. There's a conversation I just had with somebody in the teaching that I did prior to meeting with you, and we talked about the knowing what opportunity looks like, and giving the example of a chauffeur that is at the airport that has a sign that says, Mrs. Sander, right? And it's like, you're gonna come to the airport and you know that I'm your driver, but if I don't have a sign, I don't know what you look like, right? And you don't know what I look like, and then we miss each other, and that's what a missed opportunity looks like.
Mm.
But if we understand what opportunity looks like and we can see the signs of it, we can swizzle, right? Take that best piece and apply it. And I think a lot of times the answer is right underneath our nose in something that we've already done. And I think it goes back to and connected to the leadership piece is, and maybe you can speak on this or give me your opinion on this. We have leaders that have moved up within their organization or similar and cross leveled, right? They went from one organization to another in the same industry, but they moved up and now they're in this leadership position, and now they're talking down to, and I don't mean that negatively necessarily, but barking orders or whatever, and they forgot where they came from, right?
Ooh, yeah.
When they should swizzle and say, what was I complaining about? What did I want from this? How do I pull that lesson from that and then apply it? So what is your take on maybe leaders who are so engulfed in their role, but they also forgot where they came from and they knew what it was like because they used to complain once? What maybe advice or things that you have for maybe that leader?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, pay attention to your experiences because even like the example I gave before, where this is hard, it's new, people management, and then one day it becomes easy. Well, if you forget how difficult it was at first, if you are then training someone else to be a first time manager when you progress, you're not going to be as an effective teacher or leader for that person. If you're like, oh, well, it's easy, it's supposed to be easy. How could you not know that? How stupid are you? So I think it's take inventory of what you go through when you move into different roles and different parts of your life. But certainly, if there's tools or concepts or frameworks that you were like, this got me stuck. And oh, once I found this, it got me unstuck. Well, then I would present that to people in the stage that you are in. So don't be the person who's like, oh, it should be easy. how can you not get that? Be the person who's like, here's a tool set. Here's what worked for me. If that works for you, great. If not, let's find something that works for you.
Awesome. You're talking about being effective. How do leaders have better or effective communication? Because I know you talk about that in your book, Effective
Yeah.
Communication. How does one go about doing that?
That's a great question. That's a large topic. So
Yeah.
I'll go into like a few tactical pieces. So oftentimes when leaders are giving feedback to people, they'll say like, you do this great, and this good, but this, and this. And a listener will say, okay, everything before the but, I'm just going to like discard and negate. I'm just going to focus on the bad thing they said. If you swap that one word, but, for and, it changes the dynamic of the sentence. So, hey, you do this good, and we can talk about this. And that just changes like, oh, okay, like, yes, we can talk about that. And yes, I do all these things well that you mentioned, and you mean those positive things you said. So that's like a very tactical piece. The principle that I try to get across to as many people as possible is understanding that you have a communication style. So, right now, listener sitting there today, you have a way you like to be communicated to, and you have a way you like to convey and express information to other people. There are a whole bunch of different people in the world, and not everyone communicates just like you do. So, for
Ooh,
instance, I like things like short and sweet and to the point. How about some bullet points? Get like straight to the decision, give me the pros and cons. Let's do this thing and move on. Some people are like, Emily, how was your weekend? And I heard your grandma was sick and your cat's neighbor's cousin, got a phone call and they felt sad. I'm like, what? Like, why are we talking about that? But to them, that's a really important part of communication
right.
and developing a relationship. Another one is, how can you only want the bullet points? Don't you want the source material and looking through these 23 tabs of a spreadsheet with me? Okay, so no, I don't. But for some people, that's what makes them comfortable and that's what they need before they make a decision. So understanding your communication style and then understanding other people have different ones. And then as a highly effective leader, you will know how to flex your leadership style and communication style to the audience or person that you're talking to. And you'll get really good at doing that if you are aware of that and practice it over and over
Nice.
again.
Nice. In your experience working with your executive leadership coaching, what is something that you see across the board? Like, really, we're having this problem again? Like, do you see anything that is trends with the people that you've worked with that pops up a lot that you're like, okay, we need to address this in leadership because it just needs to stop?
Ooh, that's a good one. So because we just talked about communication, what's coming up for me is when people are scared to have a tough conversation or what could be a challenging conversation, and so they avoid it. They're like, "Oh, okay, well, that's happening. It needs to be addressed. I'm gonna go put my head in the sand over here and hope it goes away." I'm like, oh, face palm. What are we doing? So you can't be afraid of having a tough conversation. And let me tell you a secret. Most of those tough conversations aren't as bad as you think they're going to be. And the way to make them not as bad as you think they're going to be is to start with an observation or a question. So you're like, holy crap, like I'm going in guns blazing. This person is going to be like
That's
super
good.
confrontational. Start with an observation. Like, hey, I noticed that when Maria asked you something in the team meeting yesterday, you gave kind of a sarcastic answer. Stop talking. That's an observation. Everyone would have been able to see that. And you might get, oh my gosh, I felt so bad about that. Da, 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 da. You might be like, I don't know what you're talking about. But then that starts the conversation and you know where they're coming from. And you
Right.
could ask a question like, what were you trying to get across to the team in that team meeting yesterday? Okay, well, that opens the door too. And
Right.
I'm not assuming they're trying to be a
Right.
jackhat to Maria.
Right.
I'm
Right.
asking the question and starting a conversation. And a lot of times, once you call people on it or bring up that topic, it'll kind of diffuse itself into let's work together and find a path forward. So don't avoid tough or challenging conversations. And if you are going into one, then start with an observation or a question.
Right, and confrontation is good. I just wanna get that lesson
Yeah,
across
good
to
point
people that
too.
confrontation is good. Like, is some of it bad? Yeah, but not all of it's bad,
True.
and like you said, like, it bringing up an observation because it brings conversation. That's what confrontation does, right? Is it brings points of view or forms of understanding, and I love this point that you made of it's probably not gonna end up as bad as you think it is. Like, we are not only are we our worst critics, but we're also the critics of a situation that hasn't even happened
Yes.
yet.
Yeah.
And so it's like just and the more frequently you have those, then you start to have the confidence of this is not gonna be that bad. I would then, but I'll also forewarn people to say like, but just don't take the feeling or the humanistic side of having those conversations because you don't want to become numb to it where
Yeah.
you're having the conversations of firing people and like, hey, you're fired, bye, see you later, and
Yeah.
then
No, no, no.
like
Yeah.
no emotion or humanistic side of things.
Yeah.
Um moving to one of the last questions is what is something that you feel like all leaders should know? Like maybe that last question was something that you see common amongst leaders or executive
Mhm.
coaches, like executive leaders. What is something that you feel like, hey, in order to get to this level, bare minimum, you're gonna have to know this.
Mhm.
It may not be at this level, but if you want to go to this level, you need to have this leadership skill.
Ooh, that's a good one. There's so many I could do. I'm gonna go with I might have 2. So the first one is you need to be a systems thinker. So instead of like, let me just rabbit hole down and solve this, let me put out this fire drill right here. Oh, let me go down this train of thought and get lost in this specific instance. You need to think about, again, zoom out and say, how does this system work? Is this mechanism of business? Is my leadership team running well? Is my company running well? How can we replicate that? Is that scalable? You need to step back and be, am I a systems thinker? And is the system running well? And if there's like, okay, this part of the system is running really well, cool. Why? You should know why. And this part of the system is not quite where we need it to be. Okay, good to know why and what can you do to fix it. But you're looking at the system. You're not trying to solve specific problems. The one of the worst things I see leaders do is they're firefighting all day and they think, oh, well, it's an escalation, so I need to be involved. Or, oh, this is a strategic account. I need to be involved. Some of those you may need to pop into, yes. But on the whole, if that's 90% of your day, something is wrong. You're
Ooh,
doing something wrong, or the role set up wrong, or something's wrong. You got to change the system and change the game. So be a
so good.
systems thinker. That would be my first one. And then I would say my second one is to be a leader of a top performing team is you need to be interested in people. You just need like they're interesting. Like I'm interested in my
Yep.
team member. I remember I was leading a team and we had 7 new hires come on board. And 3 of them, it was their first job ever. And I was like, it's like it's their first job ever. Of course, as a manager, I want them to do well on the role and serve our customers. But as a human, like I'm interested in how they're doing. I
Right.
imagine their parents and their friends being like, "Hey, like how's it going? How's the new job?" And they're interested in what's going on with them. And so in the
Yeah.
same way, you should have that level of just, interest in other people.
Yeah, one of my first podcast episodes, oh man, his name slips my mind, but I just saw his post. I'm trying to think of his name. Oh my gosh, this is killing me. But his main thing was the most interesting leader is the most interested leader.
Ah,
And
I
I was
love
like,
that.
oh, let me write that down. And so I wrote it down. And it's great because he only works with high performing leaders. And you said if you want to be a high performing leader, and so I find that somebody who's in New Zealand and somebody in Seattle, right, or in Washington, on two sides of the earth that work with high performers, are saying the same exact thing of be interested in your staff. It's just being personable, it's being human. And I think a lot of times people put work in the forefront, which is work is important, right? That
Yep,
gets the bills paid at the end of the day. However, people are running those businesses. Just
yep.
pour into people, right? I love it. I usually ask these questions at the end, but I think it's to me it's more powerful just to ask you the one. But what has helped you raise the bar in your leadership?
I mean, I'm biased, but coaching, like my team of coaches. So I'm an executive coach and I know the power of that. But oh my gosh, my coaches have accelerated my growth exponentially. And they've opened up where I'm like, oh, it's option A or option B. Like, oh, I'm having a tough time decide. They've opened up, pop, 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 pop. Oh, there's like D, C, F, blue, triangle, all these different perspectives that I didn't know. And so once I've partnered with mentors and then built my team of coaches, that has definitely taken me to the next level for sure. I would say for other people who are like, I'm not really into coaching or I can't afford a coach or whatnot, it would be invest in yourself in other ways. So investing in yourself is like books, seminars, listening to this podcast.
Right.
You're taking a bet on yourself, and that's always a good bet to make. So I'm betting that if I invest this time, money, book, whatever in myself, those small wins will add up faster than I think and get me to where I want to go.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. How can we connect with you? How can listeners connect with you? Where would you want them to go, and how can they connect with you?
Sure. So the best place is my website. That's the hub of all the information, which is www.nextlevel.coach. So nextlevel.coach. And it's got my podcast, Leveraging Leadership, my 2 books there, some free downloadable resources that might be helpful for folks. But if you go to my website, you can check that out. My LinkedIn profile's on there. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So you can find me in all the places. There we go. Beautiful. Thank
There you
you.
go. Yeah. If you're watching this on YouTube, I put it on there. It will be in the description. If you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, and in YouTube, it will be in the description below as well. Awesome. What's next? What's next on the agenda for you? I mean, where do you go next?
Yeah, so I've started a chief of staff series on my podcast, which is taking off and being very well received. I'm co-authoring a book with 2 former colleagues on private equity. So it's meant for founders and leadership teams who are deciding if they're going to bring private equity investing into their organization, or if that decision's been made and it's like, what happens now? We're going to have a book that's very accessible and readable to people. And then I have a signature course coming out, which is about strategic planning for chiefs of staff and other executives who would be doing that type of activity in their company. But all of those things are in the works.
Awesome. I'm just grabbing here your podcast. Where can people find the podcast, or where's the podcast on?
Anywhere you get podcasts, all the major platforms, it's Leveraging Leadership. And I'm Emily Sanders, so you'll be able to find it right there.
There we go. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your great insight. I love what you're doing. I am subscribing to the podcast because I love to grow myself as well, and my leadership. Thank you for pouring not into me, but into the listeners. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me.